Welcome to Conversations from the Barn at Everwood Farmstead. These are casual chats with visiting artists, creaky barn, bugs, and all. Enjoy.
Hello, this is Conversations from the Barn. I'm Chris Everett. I'm here with Bill Underwood, and today we have the great pleasure of speaking with Shannon Kearns, who is here on retreat on a Friday, a very rainy Friday. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. We're really happy you're here.
And I can't believe it's September already.
How's your week been?
It's been amazing. This place is so magical. It's been really fun to be here and to just kind of take it all in for a week.
What define the magic? What has added up to magic?
The barn is incredible, and I think just how perfectly everything is designed in the cottage, but then also the landscape and being able to walk and be outside and kind of wander and roam, and to not really have any schedules has just been really delightful.
We follow you on social media, so we've seen you. I think you've had a couple of retreats this summer. Is that right?
Yeah.
In fact, one right before this. Were you in the South? I believe
I was. So I spent July into August as the playwright in residence at the William Inge House in Independence, Kansas. Oh. And then I went to Arkansas for a week and was at the Writers' Colony of Dairy Hollow. And I was on a massive deadline that week. And because it was Arkansas and COVID, I pretty much just stayed in my room for a week and didn't leave. And then I was home for 4 days and then here. So it's been kind of a wild summer.
What was the deadline?
I just finished my first book, a book on trans theology. It's kind of a combination of memoir and theological musing. So my story woven together with Bible stories, which was really hard to write and really fun to write. And it was due at the end of August. And while I was here, I got notice that the press has accepted it. So it is finished.
Wow, congratulations.
Other than copy editing. Thank you. Thank you.
Very exciting. When will that come out?
I think fall of 2022.
Okay.
So still about another year. It's a long process.
What a fascinating concept to pull those together. How did you arrive at that, and did you have mentors along the way?
Yeah, so I started doing that work. I went to seminary. I have a Master of Divinity, and in seminary, I started my medical transition while I was in seminary, which was a really interesting experience. And it was in seminary that I was taking this exegesis for the arts class. Exegesis is just this fancy term for teaching pastors how to take a text apart so they can put it back together and preach it. But I was taking a class that was looking at how you could do that in an artistic way, not just for sermons, but to put an art practice with a text. And so I started to read scripture kind of in a new way and kind of look at these texts that I had grown up with and start to see my own story in them for the first time, which was not something I was expecting to happen, and it was not how I'd been taught as a kid to read. And so when I started to do that work and started to share it and have other people be like, oh, I don't have that same experience, but something about what you did resonated with me. I just had this moment of, there's something here. And so I've been doing that work since then. This is a much more in-depth and telling much more of my story than I've told before. So that part was really challenging, but it was also really fun to put together.
What a gift that's going to be to the world.
I hope so. That's the real, I hope it's a gift.
Yeah. I think about my own growing up as a young gay kid in the South, the evangelical South, and part of what makes it hard outside of how difficult it is for your culture to know how to hold you, because this is getting to core of identity. So, that's just striking right at the heart of a young person growing up, finding who they are, but not hearing any voices at that time, or knowing people, to have any orientation about how to find my way, or what that might look like, or what healthy might look like, or what, or finding fresh language. I mean, at the time there was no internet.
Yeah.
And so you really relied around the community that was around you, holding you at that time. But what a remarkable orientation to put into the world, and even more powerful because it is your personal story.
And I talk so often about how important stories are. I also grew up in rural community, evangelical church. The first time I ever heard about trans people existing was watching Boys Don't Cry, right? That film with Hilary Swank.
Yeah, such a great film.
Which is, it's this film that made me. I remember watching it. I watched it alone in my evangelical college, and I remember feeling two things: like, thank God there's someone else like me in the world, because at this point I really thought that I was the only person who worried about gender. But then I also thought, oh, that's what's going to happen to me. Like, I'm going to be murdered.
Right.
That these are the only two options. Because that was literally the only story that I saw. And I think that moment for me became this thing of, oh, I have to tell a different story. There has to be something else in the world that lets a young adult know you are not alone, and also there's a different future for you than this one.
My mom talks to me now that and my mom has come full circle on this whole thing now, and I couldn't have a bigger the two of us couldn't have a bigger champion. But she talked about it. At that time, to be gay was a death sentence, and for her it was some of that, but also the AIDS epidemic, and for them, they just wanted, there was the religious thing, but there was also, we don't want you to die, which I completely get, but that was my orientation too. The thing that's so fascinating to me, though, is you're connecting it with the scriptures and finding your story in that. For me, it was the exact opposite. I played piano in the church from like junior high up through college, and felt so betrayed by it because I couldn't find any of my story in it, that I left the church and never went back. And so I'm anxious to read your orientation to it, because I've never been able to find myself in it.
Yeah, I tried to leave the church and it just wouldn't leave me, I think, is part of it. It's funny, when I started writing plays, I really was like, I'm not going to write about religion, because I don't want to be a religious playwright. And because often, Christian plays, they're not good. And so it was like, I don't want to do social, I'm already doing social justice art. That has a reputation for not being good. And I say that I really tried to keep religion out of it, but it kept appearing in all of my work. And no matter what I did, it kept showing up. And so finally I had to really wrestle with, okay, maybe I just need to lean into this because it's here. What happens if I just kind of go all in? Yeah. And that's been an important turning point for me. And it does leave me in this weird space of, my work is too religious for some folks and too queer for other folks. And so I'm in this odd space, but I feel like I just have to stand in that space.
Well, part of the problem is that everybody wants to make everything black and white.
Right. Yeah.
And there is no such thing, really.
It's messy.
It is messy. And beautiful because it's messy.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm interested in exploring more about, you lean in. What's been the result of that? What's the latest? The current work that you just finished, the current book, is that a result of you really leaning in that space?
So I think my newest play, which is called Body+Blood, is the I went all in, and it's about a trans priest who is also a bartender, and so it's an exploration of ritual and how we find community And so he both kind of creates a community and rituals in the bar as a bartender, but then also in the church. And it's some of my most, I think, honest or personal writing in art form. He has these series of monologues where he kind of weaves together scripture and poetry and talks about what it means for him to be a trans person and a priest. And that was really a moment for me of saying, well, I'm just going to talk about all of these things. And I don't know if it's going to make sense to anyone but me, but like, I feel like I have to talk about this stuff. Yeah, and I found I bartended my way through seminary, so again, it's like a really personal piece. But I often found that I was doing more pastoral care as a bartender than I was in the church. The people were willing to engage their frailty and messiness at the bar in a way that there were walls up in church. And so this piece is also kind of exploring that of what happens. Where can we be vulnerable? What does that look like?
What is it about a bar that makes it confessional?
I mean, booze always helps, I think. But I think that there is in some spaces, I think it might be you think you'll never see this person again, right? There's that kind of confessional moment. But then there is with the bar regular, right, who comes in every night and tells the story. And I think for some folks, it's the only place that anyone listens to them, or the only place that they feel like they can just talk. And the bartender's role is to really be a confessor of sorts, right? It's not to solve the problem or to even be in relationship. It's just to hold the space.
And to listen.
And to listen, yeah.
Be a witness in some ways.
Absolutely.
Where will the piece go from here?
I don't know. I'm
Is it
trying
in
to find a
development?
home for it.
You are, okay.
Yeah. So I did a developmental workshop with Seven Devils this summer, and that was all on Zoom, which was fantastic. But I feel like the next piece is I need to be bodies in space in a room. The questions that I still really have about the piece are about how it moves, and I can't figure that out on Zoom.
You told me you had to shut your theater company down.
Yeah.
What was the name of the company?
Uprising Theater Company.
And was that a Twin Cities based?
Yeah, we started in 2015 with the idea of doing art about social justice, but really the thing was connecting art to action. So we partnered with organizations for every show that we did. And those organizations actually made an ask of the audience that people could do before they left the theater. So it was more than, handing out pamphlets. It was really about let's get people's empathy engaged, and then let's put them to work. And it was a really beautiful 6 years. And then towards the end, we transitioned to doing all work by trans and non-binary playwrights, really wanting to uplift and train trans and non-binary actors. And we were in the middle of really starting that mission when COVID hit. And then, looking at the finances, it just wasn't possible.
Do you hope to someday resurrect it, bring it back?
I don't know.
Or is that just a time and place in your life?
I'm open to seeing what comes of it. I feel like what I learned from that experience was to make a theater company run, you have to raise a lot of money and be a fundraiser, and that is not my skill set. So I'd be open to doing something like it or partnering with someone. I definitely feel like that mission of finding ways to uplift the voices of trans and non-binary playwrights and connecting them to theaters who can do their work well and will do it respectfully. That's like a personal mission of mine. And so whether that's another organization or I do that work on my own, that mission will continue for sure.
Is there another theater company like it in the country?
There are more that are popping up, but often very, very, very small and under-resourced. That seems to be the main thing, and often really young folks, so people just coming out of college or MFA programs that are starting something new.
I'm wondering, earlier you were telling me about where you grew up in Pennsylvania, immersed in nature, and I'm wondering, I don't know what the other retreat spaces were like, but so much of we feel the heart of Everwood is the nature around us, and the trails and the trees and the quiet. I'm wondering how that has served you and your work this week.
I think the quiet is the big thing for me. I've been noticing just the quality of silence, except it's not silence, right? But it's a different type of silence. You know, in the city, there's just always people and sirens, and that becomes its own kind of white noise that you don't even notice. But I find being here, I'm listening in a different way, and I'm having space to, I think, listen to myself in a different way, and that's been really special. And I think that's exactly what I needed, was to get still and to listen.
Good. I'm glad you found that this week.
Yeah.
We traditionally wrap up our conversations with a question, and so we'll pose it to you. And it is, how have you experienced beauty today?
You know, I think today, with it being rainy and there's a little bit of chill in the air, and just being able to be in the barn and hear kind of the patter on the roof and see the light in a different way has been really beautiful.
I do love the barn in the rain. The metal roof has a very particular sound.
Yeah.
And what I'm actually hearing is like little teeny drips, which is making me want to get up and find where the roof might be leaking, which is such a rare
That's
thing.
the leaves right there.
You think it's the leaves? I hope it's the leaves.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time with this.
My pleasure.
And we're so happy that you got to join us this year. And we really would love to know your work as it hits the world and how you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for hosting. This is really beautiful.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Conversations from the Barn at Everwood Farmstead. Our theme music is provided by John Mark Nelson. Wishing you all good health.